One. Hello, we are live. Thank you everyone for joining us. We have Reginald Andre with ARC Solvers and a special guest from Winds Technology, Barry Slyper. How you doing today, Barry?
I'm doing great, Andre. How are you?
Good, good. So thank you so much for joining us. For people that don't know what you do, what your company is, and I'm sorry, it's Wind Connectivity, not Technologies.
Sure. Okay.
Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Well, again, my name is Barry Slyper. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Wind Connectivity, and we're a nationwide provider of leading edge wireless connectivity solutions, including distributed antenna systems, private LTE networks, and public safety DAS. Uh, in today's world, as we all know, connectivity and mobility is everything. And at Wind Connectivity, we want to deliver secure, reliable wireless solutions to ensure control and visibility of your people and things. Whether it's a private LTE network for your IoT environment, or it's DAS to improve your customers' in building mobility experience, or even manage Wi-Fi, we can build the right solution combined with your optimal financial model. So connected, portable, mobile, it's what we are and it's what we do.
Awesome. And the reason why Barry, I thought you were such a good fit for our ARC Solvers clients. We do work for about 150 condominiums in South Florida. Plus we do a lot of commercial buildings. Is because many times I'm at a job site and my technicians are trying to reach the office because they need, escalated support. And we always have this issue. The issue is that these buildings, high-rise, multi-million-dollar buildings, condominiums, and there's no cell phone reception. And for well, first of all, Barry, why is there no cell phone reception? If a developer is building a $300 million project, why isn't that like, what is lacking? What are they not thinking about? Why are these developers not integrating some type of system so that if I pay $1.2 million for my unit, I don't have to stand in my balcony to get signal?
It appears to be it's always the forgotten piece of technology that needs to be added into a building. I mean, I say to people many times, imagine you're a realtor, or you're looking at a building and you're showing it to your client, and the client's cell phone rings, okay, and they take the call, and then this is what you get. Sorry, who is this? Can you repeat that? Can I hear, can you hear me? Let me move closer to the window. Can you hear me now? Almost like the commercial that was there for years in Sprint, can you hear me now? And the question is they can't, because there is so much glass, so much concrete, so much steel that the signal cannot penetrate from the public network. It can't penetrate the building. So that's why we have a lack, and we have spotty cell service in a lot of condos. I myself live in a condo in Aventura, and I face this challenge on a daily basis.
Wow.
That I have to stand in certain areas to go, how do you hear me now?
Yeah, very sad. Very, very sad, especially if you're paying a lot of money in a condo in Aventura.
Oh yeah.
So the services that you provide, is that something where if a developer is listening to this right now, prior to the building being built, that is, like you said, it's forgotten. So it is something that can be done prior, but then what about for the buildings that have been built, 20, 30-year-old buildings that are out here in South Florida? Is it too late for them?
No. It's not too late at all. And I'll give you a great example. You and I were talking prior to the call, starting just about South Beach in general. Well, this past year, Super Bowl was in Tampa, but the year before it was here in Miami, as we all know. And the cellular carriers, it's very, very important to them, especially in an event type market, to have great cellular connectivity. So all of those hotels on Ocean Drive, if you were to go into them right now, the majority of them, I'm going to say about 95% of them, all have now great cell service. Why? Because we built distributed antenna systems in those buildings. And that was driven by the carrier's need to deliver great services, not only in the building, but also outside the building. So on top of these buildings, and they're not a lot of them are not a lot of high rise in this case, they're shooting signal from the building rooftop to the street. Now, you don't even see the antennas because it's not like the old days. These antennas are really small cell antennas, and they're shooting signal to the beach. So we're taking stress off that public network that was built
Mm.
many, many years ago.
And that's called a DAS,
That's
the
DAS,
distributor. Okay,
distributed antenna system. Yes,
okay, I
yes.
see. Okay, so that's very interesting to know that you guys were involved in that. So from a technology standpoint, especially with COVID, what has been some of the biggest challenges that has faced property managers and owners of these high-rise residential spaces?
Well, I mean, some of the biggest challenges right now, you know, and that's really a great question. And I get asked this quite a bit. You know, it would have to be connectivity. To be even more clear, it's been an issue for quite some time. And now, you know, with COVID-19, it's so important to have good connectivity. Now, I'm not just talking about, you know, internet and Wi-Fi, which is what most properties have in their common areas. I'm talking about cellular connectivity, being able to get all your cell calls and have great data connectivity, not just from one carrier, but from all three carriers.
Mm, yeah, and the three carriers are which ones?
Well, you're talking about T-Mobile,
Mhm.
okay? You're talking Verizon, and you're talking AT&T. And there's going to be a fourth carrier coming on soon, which will be Dish.
Oh wow, I didn't
Yeah,
even know they did cell phones.
their Dish is going to basically start from scratch and build a 5G network from the ground up. And
Wow,
it's going to take a few years. So they're probably going to ride on the networks of the other carriers
I see.
for the time being, but that seems to be moving forward.
Okay, so let me ask you another question, Barry. So if a building, let's just say 5G starts to implement, when would you say 5G is going to start to be? I know it's out right now, but
Yeah.
it's obviously, let's just say 60% of the market is 5G. How does that now affect these buildings? Does that now, can they still have issues with the cell phone reception, or is 5G able to penetrate through the buildings?
Well, 5G is a similar problem. You're still going to have problems because it's more of a small cell technology. So you still want to have that signal brought into the building. You have to understand that when the cellular network was built many, many years ago, okay, it was built for voice. We
Mm,
live in a very data-driven world these days. So that network, many, many times, it's actually become acceptable sometimes, you know, call drops, call, you miss a
right.
call, whatever. But I can tell you right now from dealing with folks in buildings in the Miami area, high-end residential properties, high-rise residential properties, and they're on a call. And let's say you're an executive, you own a company, or you're just a businessman and you're on a call and you pull into your garage and the call drops.
Yeah,
You're in
yeah.
the middle of a multi-million-dollar opportunity. Okay, well, that's very frustrating. So what we try to do is when we go in and we design these networks and in building DAS, we build what's called a neutral host system, being able to bring all three carriers into the building. Now, there's different types of ways to do this, and I'm not going to get too technical, but there's one way, which is where we bring the signal in from the street via fiber connectivity into what they call the head-in room, which is normally where your IT equipment is, your phone system is, and then from there we build up and across with access points that look just like Wi-Fi access points, except they're delivering cell service. The other way is in smaller buildings. It's not as easy to get the carriers to join the system, but in some of these smaller buildings, they can't get the signal from the public network to penetrate the building. So we put a donor antenna on top of the building and pick up the public signal and bring it into the building. Same way again, okay, with a distributed antenna system, but we're bringing it in from the public network, if that makes sense.
No, no, it definitely does make sense, and you definitely dumbed it down for me because I always thought personally that once 5G comes ahead, it's gonna be like, you can be in a dungeon or something and it doesn't matter. But I guess 5G is more about speed, and like you said, for the data side, but not necessarily the signal side.
You're also going to see with 5G, you're going to see a lot more antennas. But when I say see them, you really physically won't see them because they're going to blend into the scenery. Right now, there is tests being done in major markets. I know in New York and Times Square, there was a test being done for 5G. Now, you won't even notice the antennas, but they're on street poles, they're on buildings, and they blend in because they're small antennas, and they're delivering that 5G signal. So you're going to start to see a whole new infrastructure being built by the carriers, and they're spending right now hundreds of millions of dollars doing that.
Wow, wow. Okay, well, good to know. So let me ask you another question about your company. So we know with these high end buildings, multifamily buildings, real estate buildings, there's life safety involved. So tell us about the laws that are coming about or have came about, and just educate the market for that.
Yeah, I mean, right now, a lot of people don't even know what public safety DAS is. Let me just kind of give you a little bit of a scenario with that. I think everybody could relate to. Let's roll the clock back to 9/11, which was one of the worst days in the history of our country. And the first responders showed up at the World Trade Center. They couldn't communicate with each other. All right. The building, once they got in, the stairwells, and they were going up, the radio signal was not good in the building. They couldn't get on the same channels. And it really created a lot of problems and
Hmm.
caused a lot of people to lose their lives. And a lot of them were first responders because they didn't know what was going on. So, public safety DAS is a way to bring that signal to the building. And it's done with an antenna that's put on top of the building. And then strategically, access points are placed in about 99% of areas, critical areas like stairwells, near the elevators. So when the responders get to the site, they can all be on the same channel and be able to communicate with each other and perform what they do best, which is saving lives and getting people out of those buildings if there is an environment where they need to leave the building.
So as far as Florida or even South Florida, if someone is managing a building right now and maybe it's a 20-year-old building, what should they know that they like? What are you seeing out there in the market where you may go, you're doing an assessment, a proposal, and the building still has this system, but it really should now be this system?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So it's now becoming mandatory. First of all, if it's a brand new building, you can't get a certificate of occupancy on a brand new build without having a public safety DAS in. So that goes back to like your earlier question about why do builders not put in a DAS system? Uh, Okay, but public safety, they've got to do it. In the older buildings, the regulations say, I think it's another year right now we have until they have to do this. And then the fines are going to start to happen. So you're going to start to see what they call the AHJ's authority. These are the authority figures, which is the fire marshal and stuff. They're going to start going out and visiting properties. And they're going to say, hey, you need to start looking at, a public safety system for the building. So what I'm able to do with Win, and I did this year, and it's really helped a lot of properties, is they didn't plan for this, Andre. They really didn't. So financially, they're looking at this and going, "Oh my goodness, we're going to have to do an assessment." And everybody that lives in a condo or even any kind of building hates assessments, um, but they have to do something to pay for this. So I'm able to put together a finance program that makes it very, very easy for the building to do this. We can actually go in, build a public safety DAS system, which meets all codes, all requirements, and put it into a 5 to 7 year program. And today, with interest rates being at single digits, it's so easy to make this happen. And at the end, they basically own the system for $1. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And is that something where when you're doing the first responder dash, you can also just do the cell phone? Is that like kind of a thing as well?
It's really great that you brought that up because that's one thing I do bring up to buildings. I say, hey, if we're going to put a public safety DAS in here, why not consider building also a neutral host DAS system on top of that that'll give great cell service through the whole building. And that's not just for cell service in general, because there's a lot of other things you could do, with these phones today. Access control, you can open
Mhm.
doors. We're living in a touchless environment now because of COVID. And I think even after COVID, as more vaccines get out there, people are still going to be very much aware of what they're touching and opening doors. Maybe it's access to the pool, maybe it's access to the tennis courts. maybe it's access to a common area, game room or card room, etc. You could open the doors with that. We're seeing a lot of that in hospitality, by the way, too. So yes, I could put that together, save them a lot of money, because once the cabling crews, the infrastructure folks are in there pulling cable, why not pull just another cable at the same time? It saves you
And
so much money.
yeah, and I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because one of our people watching, her name is Emily. She's asking, do you have to go? She has she manages a condominium in Hallandale Beach. She wants to know, do you have to actually go inside the unit, or are you just kind of putting it on the floors?
Great question, Emily. No, we do not go inside the unit. The antennas will penetrate. The units we have RF engineers that'll go in, they'll heat map the whole building. So this way we see, and our goal is a 95% coverage of the building and common areas should the building want that. So if there is a parking garage and it's a covered parking garage, you're going to want to have signal in there as well. So we can do all that and cover that. And I always tell people it's about 95%, maybe a little bit more, not
Right,
less.
right.
On the public safety, there are areas that it's going to be 99% coverage. Those stairwells are critical to the first responders. But in a regular DAS, cellular DAS, yeah, we're going to cover 95% of that area. Correct.
Nice, yeah, because I know one of the issues we always have when back in the days when I used to do residential, I would put Wi-Fi, and it typically is in the middle of the actual living room. And then I get a call over the weekend. Oh, I was in the bathroom and I couldn't get my cell phone reception. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's always got to be a give and take. But
Yeah,
does it work where you actually work? And the answer was yes. I was like, all right, that's what really matters. If you can't scroll on your Facebook while you're in the bathroom, that's your problem.
correct. Well, the good news is too, with the way these antennas get placed, and a lot of times too, we make sure that we are also near elevator banks as well. So it can be frustrating too when you get onto the elevator and lose a call. Even though some folks hate when folks are talking on the cell phone in the elevator,
Right.
but guess what? Sometimes that call is important, and you've walked out of your unit and you're on the phone and you don't want to miss that call, or you want to continue that call. So if the antennas are strategically placed properly, the signal is going right into the shaft as well, and you're not losing any signal. And when you get out of the elevator, your call is just continuing on.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
For everyone to know, Barry and I, we work with each other. We recommend our clients, when I'm in a building, they don't have reception, I let our managers know about his company. But that actually is a good point about the elevators, because that is something that is always the case. You're in that box, and I mean, what if there was an emergency and something's not working? I want my cell phone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's many times where that box is not working
Yeah.
in a lot of buildings, whether they're old or new buildings, because, whatever, something has happened, the connectivity is not there. But now at least you have your cell phone. That cell phone is your lifeline.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is. I mean, we live in this world today that, people don't buy phone systems anymore for their office buildings. It's usually a VoIP application, and everybody's phone is twinned to their cell phone. So in the business world, when my phone rings in my office, this is simultaneously ringing as well.
Yeah.
So I never miss a call. So, and that's critical to business in general.
Yeah. So Barry, we talked about the high rises, and that is for ARC solvers, our target client base.
Sure.
However, I know that you do other industries. So I wanted to, if you can give us a few case studies about, I see here on your website, you guys do healthcare, hospitality, education,
Yeah.
transportation. You talked a little about large public venues. So talk about these, if someone is listening in and they are in a hospital group or whatever the case is, give us some case studies of how your company has helped with those industries as well.
Great question. So I'm gonna start with hospitality for a moment, then I'll go into healthcare. I was just on a call prior to this. We were talking about hospitality. Hospitality, it's so critical today for the guest experience, that when a guest comes into a hotel environment or a resort environment, that they have that connectivity. There's nothing more frustrating than booking an event at a hotel and going to that event and not being able to live stream what's going on at that event. All right. Why? Because it's terrible connectivity. So hotels, and I always look at cellular services. To me, I, it's the fourth utility.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you got to look. You got to look at it from a standpoint of, you know, bringing that into a hotel adds value. I have done this with so many hotels. In fact, I'm leaving. I mentioned you earlier. I'm leaving for Los Angeles in a
Hmm.
few weeks, and I'm working on a project out there right now, which is a 1.4 million square foot hotel. It's one of the largest properties in Los Angeles. Why is it so important that they have connectivity? Lots of events. Okay. And also, quite frankly, the Super Bowl is coming to Los Angeles shortly. The Olympics are coming to Los Angeles down the road. There's a lot of events coming into this property. And it's key because a lot of people that are the event planners that are booking these events, one of their questions that's on their list is, how's the cell phone connectivity in the building? And they need to know it's going to be good, and not just from one provider. They want it from all providers. So a lot of folks don't realize that you could walk into a property sometimes, and if you have AT&T, you might have great reception. Why? Because AT&T came in and built a AT&T DAS system, which is not what you want to do. You want to build a neutral host system where all three carriers, and soon to be four, can join the system. Because not everybody, I mean, I use T-Mobile. I'm a T-Mobile guy. You may be a Verizon guy. Our neighbor could be an AT&T guy. We all need that connectivity. So hospitality, big deal.
Let me ask
Um,
you a question about the hospitality. Is that also something where, even though, let's just say they built the building, the cell phone signal is pretty good, right? It's decent, it works. But
mhm,
now if you have 1,000 people come in on a Sunday for an event,
mhm.
that's no longer doable. Then they need a system like yours to, I don't want to say overflow, or what would that word be? But is that something that these buildings also need to take account, that if you all of a sudden have a certain amount of people in a small area, normally it's not going to be able to provide the best signal, or for data.
Well, I think, yeah, that's a good point. But what really boils down to also is some of these folks, they count on the fact that, oh, our clients could use Wi-Fi calling. Well, here's what
Mm,
happens when they start using Wi-Fi calling. They're sucking up the bandwidth. And a lot of these hotels don't have sufficient amount of bandwidth to, you know, carry on and deliver the proper signal. So now you've got an overload of people on the network. And if you don't have a DAS system in there, so they're drawing from the public network that's coming into the hotel in an okay manner. Whereas if you have a DAS system, you are bringing in that network directly via fiber or from a donor antenna, and your phone is going to be showing 5 bars, and you're not going to have any connectivity issues. Um, Another example, of if you go to a stadium these days, not that we've gone lately,
right.
but back in the day, okay, pre-COVID, when we went to stadiums, okay, and you went to a concert or to a football game or to a baseball game, you get great signal in these stadiums. Why? Because they all have distributed antenna systems. Why do they have them? Because everybody wants that immediate
Hmm.
experience, that immediate satisfaction, gratification, being able to see, hey, I'm at the Bruce Springsteen concert. Here's Bruce right now. And you're holding up your phone and you're streaming this out to your following on Facebook, etc. So it's really key to have that. So in a hotel, yeah, without this kind of connectivity, especially when you get into the high-rise hotels, and even when you get into the hotels like out in Palm Desert, I told you I'm heading out there. I'm working on a resort out there right now that's 2.5 million square feet. Now it's huge. Okay, golf course, all that stuff, but it's only 5-story buildings. But it's spread out in a campus environment almost, and their cell service is poor. All right. So what we're doing is we're building out the network to cover everything, all the common area,
Oh.
and give that cell service that boost it needs by having their own, DAS
Yeah,
system. Yeah, it makes
because it's
sense.
not only about, if you're in a building and you're just surrounded by concrete, you can be out in the open. The other day I went
Correct.
golfing, and yeah, the signal was, and because it was out in the boondocks and there was just no cell phone signal, and
Right.
instead of waiting for the carriers to come to them, hey,
Right.
we just need this now because this is an amenity that our guests require and are expecting.
You know, it's funny you bring that up about the golf course, because I was actually out playing golf this past weekend, and the big challenge that golf courses are having is delivering signal out to the course, especially now, even more so where we're going into a cashless environment. No one wants to deal with cash. Now, there are ways to do this even without cellular, but there's ways to do it with Wi-Fi. There are specific types of antennas that we do for these type of environments that can actually shoot signal in a circular field for 2 miles.
Wow.
So basically, on top of the clubhouse, we put this specific type of antenna, and we're shooting signal out. And this way, the folks that are driving the most important thing out there, which is the beverage cart, okay, so we can stay hydrated,
Right,
all
of
right,
course.
okay, is bottom line is then now they can use it, and scan credit cards. Otherwise, at the course I was playing on over the weekend, you had to give them your credit card. The
Uh-huh.
girl had to drive the cart back and meet you 5 holes later. Now, some people, from a security standpoint, it's not that you may not trust the cart gal, but it's just you're giving them your credit card, and
Hmm.
that's no one wants to do that. So there's lots of ways to do that. And another big thing, and I don't know if we want to touch on this, but I'm going to bring it forward, is there's a new technology out there now, and it's called CBRS. Now that stands for Citizens Broadband Radio Services. And just to explain this very easily, when you walk outside, the airwaves it's part of the spectrum. So all those signals, which are invisible, okay, they are owned and controlled by the government. Well, the government this year sold part of the spectrum. Who bought the spectrum? AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Google, Amazon. So now we could also deliver into a building a private LTE network. So imagine that now, being able to have your own private network, not dependent upon a cell phone carrier or multiple cell phone carriers, because the new phones, Andre, have dual SIMs in them. A lot of folks don't know this because they haven't all gotten the new phone, but eventually they will, all right, which we all do, all right. And
Hmm.
this has dual SIMs in it. There's a virtual SIM and a hard SIM. And that virtual SIM is going to work on a private network. And this is starting now to be done in stadiums, in big venues. They're building private networks, fulfillment centers, hospitals, buildings. Hospitals want to have a private network. It's much more secure than a Wi-Fi network, and it's a lot less access points. So there's a big dollar savings.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
big stuff. Yeah.
So let me just make sure, because I actually didn't know this. So let's just say this cell phone has a dual SIM. Now, when I think dual SIM, I'm thinking the person who wants two separate phone numbers. Are we talking about the same thing or no?
No,
No.
no.
What do you,
It
okay.
necessarily doesn't be too, meaning that you're going to be able to go into a building,
Uh-huh.
okay, and if they have a private network built,
Uh-huh.
okay, that you will actually go off the public network and now be on the private network. Still being able to make your calls, but
I see.
on going out over the private network, which will attach to the public network.
Right.
But in building, you are going to be getting unbelievable connectivity. Just, I mean,
Because
incredible connectivity.
okay, yeah, because then I was gonna ask, well, how do they know if I'm on this network or not? How do they know I belong here? But that actually now it makes sense now. That's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, this is very new, and it's taking off very quickly. And some of the biggest markets that are really looking at this right now, believe it or not, education. So we have a problem today since COVID, and one of the biggest problems is delivering bandwidth to communities. And a
Hmm.
lot of those communities could be rural communities. Now here in South Florida, we have rural areas where bandwidth is tough, and we're not giving our kids what they need, which is connectivity. So we can do that by building private networks for the community,
Wow.
okay, and deliver that bandwidth so that the school will have it, and from the school with an antenna system shooting bandwidth
Wow.
to homes in the area. So imagine that. I mean,
Yeah.
being able to do all that stuff and do it affordably, and even if the communities need help, we can help them financially finance this type of stuff. Okay, and there are grants that are available with this stuff too, and we have folks that know how to find that money.
Yeah, I remember when I just started my other business back in 2003 or so. I won't mention the city, but one of the biggest cities in Miami, basically decided to do this. And this is again like 20 years ago. And it was funny because now that you're telling me you're taking one antenna and going 2 miles with it, where this particular city had to put an access point probably every 3 blocks, and it never worked. It was basically like a city public Wi-Fi, and it never
Yeah, yeah.
worked.
Well,
So
I remember when they were doing that. I remember the public Wi-Fi scenario. This is so much different because
yeah,
this is private LTE.
private, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we're seeing this. I'm working on a project. I don't want to name the city either. Right
Hmm.
here in our backyard, that decided they want to be a smart city.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
And the way to do that is to do it and build a private network and do it where it's not only just going to cover in building, it's going to cover all common area in the city. I mean, right down to the point where it can help run the IoT stuff, the AI stuff. In other words, the lighting for the city, et cetera,
Hmm.
all that stuff. So imagine when cities get into a situation where they want to put more security out there uh, from a standpoint of cameras, et cetera. Well, it costs a lot of money to start running cable to those cameras. But now in a private LTE, you could put a SIM card in the camera and run it over your private network. And with micro slicing, I don't want to get technical, but
Right.
there's capabilities to make sure that we don't lose signal to that camera and we get what we need to deliver, that 4K or whatever we have to deliver to from the
Right.
camera. So
Wow.
it's technology is moving along at a rapid pace. Win is definitely staying on top of it, and anything that has to do with wireless, we want to take a look at it, and whether it be public safety DAS, in building DAS, or a private LTE network, uh, we want to be involved.
Well, Barry, I will have to tell you this. When I was thinking about putting you here on the interview, I was like, man, who really wants to hear about telecommunications? It sounds boring. It's just pick up the phone. But man, I learned a lot. Like, I mean, this is really interesting because the technology, I don't know, for some reason in my mind, I just thought telecommunications was just there. It always worked, but apparently, obviously, never works or hardly works. So this was really good, Barry. Is
Thank
there
you.
anything else that maybe we have missed that you want to touch upon?
I made a few notes. I'm looking at it, and I think we've covered so much. I'd like to repeat this one more time, though, and I think it's really very critical to a lot of folks that may be on this call that could be involved in buildings or in management of buildings, et cetera. Don't think that this is not affordable. It is very affordable. We can make this happen for your property. A lot of companies are just looking for that, quick hit, come on in, get paid, and say goodbye. We want to establish long-term relationships, and we're able to put this together and put it together in a couple of ways. I have some buildings that like us to work and provide the service, what we call connectivity as a service. I mean, those of you who can relate to software as a service, relate to connectivity as a service, where we'll actually come in, build it, finance it, manage it. I'll even build a tech refresh program in it. So if technology changes, if we go from 5G to 6G, which I doubt is going to happen very shortly, okay, but we would be there at your side. If you don't want to do it that way, you don't want anybody encumbering your building or owning any infrastructure in your building or at your building, then let us put a lease program together with you that makes sense, and it can be paid out over 5 to 7 years. And the technology, I can tell you right now, all of this new technology is all 5G ready to go. People don't realize how long we've been in 4G. It's well over 10, 12 years now.
Wow.
Okay. And 5G is just starting to happen. And it's still going to be quite a bit of time until you see the whole market being at a 5G marketplace. So you're going to be really fine with the technology. But most importantly, and I'll leave you all with this one thought, is public safety DAS, you're going to need to look at this, and let me help you. And please, even if it's just a question, my contact information is going to be given out. Uh, Feel free to contact me. I'm there. Use me as a resource. I can't win every business deal or every opportunity, but I can be a resource, and that's what I do. I help people and put people together with the right people to make this happen.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Barry, for your time. And yes, we are putting your information out on the chat, but just in case someone's watching this on YouTube and they're driving or anything like that, or a podcast, can you go ahead and just give them your email address, your website, and any other way they can contact you?
Sure, sure. So cell phone number 786 200 0621. Email B like boy, Slyper, S like Sam, LY, P like Peter, ER at winconnectivity.com. And our email on our website is winconnectivity.com. Take a look, visit us there, reach out. I'm here in South Florida. I cover all of Florida. I cover pretty much all of the Southeast, and I also, believe it or not, cover the West Coast of the country as well. So, if some of you are property owners or property management companies out there that have multiple states that you're in, we work in every state in the country. So let us help you. Let us help you with your connectivity needs.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Barry. And thank you for the ARC Solvers live audience that's listening. If you missed any part of this, it is recorded. It's going to be on our Facebook. We're also going to be sending out a newsletter when that comes out later this month with all our information. So thank you again, Barry, and we'll see everyone next time.
Thanks, Andre. You have a great day. Thank you.